We're too divided to beat him.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
That's the same story from every country that slipped into dictatorship. That's not America. There is a powerful force that can stop Trump.
Democracy is who we are.
It's you. It's your vote and your voice.
This is one of those defining moments in American history. Each of those who vote will be remembered. So let's love good. Let's get back to work.
It is Super Tuesday. Some people are busy working. We're just busy trying to find the dumbest thing you've heard today. Here we go.
Keith Olbermann does not speak for the party. And
yes, he does.
Okay. And Michael Moore does too, right? We don't see him until every 4 years, and then he comes out and says terrible things about Democrats, and then he disappears, and then he comes out again. What I'm confused about, and I have been consistent on this, roll the tape, I want Trump on the ballot because you want it to be as democratic as possible. That doesn't mean necessarily that the Colorado Supreme Court didn't have a case, right, to consider, that their ruling doesn't mean anything. But I obviously want people to, well,
Clearly
there are people who disagree with that. Well, they had a bench trial. I understand that the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. I'm just saying there was a bench trial, and then it went to the Supreme Court in Colorado. It was a 4-3 decision there. It wasn't like a unanimous. Anyway, what Jamie Raskin is doing is what the justices asked him to do. They said this is Congress that makes the decision. So that is what's going to happen. And this argument that Democrats are relying on the courts to win is so bizarre to me, considering what happened in 2020. And I hate to rehash, I don't really hate to rehash this. I love to rehash this. Donald Trump called for recounts everywhere. He got his recounts. Then he continued to lose. He had over 6.
So did Raskin.
Stop it. They are not comparable.
There
were over
So did a lot
6
of Democrats.
You're telling me that what Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and everyone else who's in trouble.
Them, but
it's not about hating
we shan't relitigate
disenfranchising voters,
we shan't litigate
which Donald Trump was.
No, but I want to say one thing.
Make it quick.
The court just said that Congress has the power to do this.
Is Jamie Raskin not in Congress?
But wait a minute. We know he can't even get it out of committee. But in addition to that, Section 3 was drafted to ensure an enduring union, not to separate us. And they still need to have the ability to decide whether or not there's been an insurrection. Donald Trump has never been charged nor convicted of insurrection. So we're going to do two things, neither of which will happen before this thing can even be issue.
And then I've got important stuff to get to, okay? You allow me?
Yes.
The country headed to the polls today as Donald Trump eyes a possible Super Tuesday sweep to all but clinch the Republican nomination. Trump is on track to potentially win more primaries and caucuses than any previous Republican presidential candidate outside of an incumbent, an indication of his successful transformation of the GOP in his own image. Joining me now to discuss is former Trump White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews. Sarah, it's great to talk to you. I guess one of the things that we should get into is sort of what I was talking about with Adam Kinzinger earlier on in this program. I know that you resigned on January 6th. And what goes through your mind that on this Super Tuesday, Trump is basically on the verge, on the cusp of clinching the nomination? He won't clinch it today, but he's going to be very close.
Yeah, I think if you would have told me back on January 6, 2021, that just a couple years later we would find ourselves in this position, that he is still the leader of the Republican Party and is on his way toward clinching the Republican nomination, I would probably be shocked. And it's shocking because so many Republicans in the immediate aftermath of January 6th condemned Donald Trump for his efforts to try to overturn the election and his failure on January 6th. And now many of those people have kissed the ring and cozied up to him. And so it is disappointing. And I find a little bit of hope, though, in the fact that Nikki Haley is still in this race, that she's been able to win about 40% of the vote in some of the states that we've seen thus far. And it shows me that there is a growing shift in the Republican Party of folks who want to leave Donald Trump behind. But obviously, it's not enough. He still has this large hold on the base.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure. You know, Trump world, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Nikki Haley to get out of this race after tonight. You think she should hang in there?
That's my hope. I hope that she stays in, honestly, until the convention, if she has the resources and has the ability to do so, because we don't know what could happen between now and the convention. We could see Donald Trump be convicted. And so who knows then what could happen at a convention. And so I really do hope that she'll stay in the race and continue to give voters another option, because right now, obviously, it looks like he is marching toward clinching the nomination, but there is still some time between now and the convention.
Yeah, and for the folks at home who've forgotten what was going on inside the White House, that I was inside the White House that day on January 6th, and I know you were part of the team that was trying to get Trump to basically talk down the rioters, to get them to stop doing what they were. For folks who forget all of this, what was going on that day?
Yeah, I was in the West Wing that day, as were you. We spoke that day, and I was doing everything in my power to try to get Donald Trump to stop the violence, because I knew that his supporters would only listen to him. And so I was talking to the people who I knew had his ear and telling them he needed to condemn the violence and he needed to tell these rioters to get away from the Capitol. And obviously, it took hours and hours and hours for him to do so, after he had many of his closest advisors begging and pleading with him. And so he reluctantly finally did. But that was already after much of the violence had already happened, and the Capitol Police had regained control of the building. And so it really didn't matter at that point then when he finally did speak up. And I think he didn't speak up because he was enjoying what was happening. He saw these people as fighting for him, and he wanted to do everything he could to stay in power. And so that was why I resigned that day. I felt uncomfortable with his efforts to try to overturn the election from the post-November moving on to January 6th. But obviously that day was a red line for me then.
Yeah.
People are also frustrated, and I get it. People are generally frustrated with the negativity they see every time they see coverage of Washington. That's why Congress right now has an approval rating, last time I checked, was, I think, in the 20s. So we need to make sure that we highlight the things that are going right and continue to pay attention to the things that are going wrong, and lay out the plan and make clear who's trying to get progress and who's trying to actually solve those problems versus just use them to score political points. I mean, it was especially disappointing to see what happened with the border, right? You got congressional GOP, talked about the border every chance they got. So you would think they would be interested in addressing it. And yet, when a bipartisan bill put together by one of the most conservative members of the Senate and Democrats working, negotiating, making tough decisions that both of their respective bases were going to have trouble with, came and hammered that out. It looked like there was going to be a chance to do something real with real resources at the border, only for Donald Trump, who's not even an elected official, to come in and kill it with the chill that he put on congressional Republicans. So, yeah, we can either solve problems or we can have them be political footballs.
The whole move to try...
Decision Desk 2024. Some primaries have already been called in the East Coast because voting there has closed. The voting stations have closed. Let's bring you up to date with what we have so far. Decision has been made for the Virginia Democratic presidential primary. That's gone to Joe Biden. The Vermont Democratic presidential primary, the result there projected to go to Joe Biden. Virginia Republican presidential primary projected to go to Donald J. Trump. Let's just check what else we have coming down here with regard. Should have some polling as well for you. The race update in Vermont, Trump has 63.4% of the vote, Nikki Haley 33.4%. We have North Carolina Democratic presidential primary, that's been called for Joe Biden. North Carolina Republican presidential primary, that has been called for Donald J. Trump.
I'm going to ask both of you who you voted for at the top of the ticket for president.
I voted for Donald Trump.
I voted for Donald Trump.
Why did you vote for Donald Trump?
My most important reason is he is pro-life. I am against abortion, and that's like, I'm a one-issue candidate, or one-issue voter, I guess you could say. Pro-life is important.
Republican primary in a second. But first, we're going to talk about the Virginia Democratic primary. The winner is Joe Biden. CNN can project that Joe Biden will win the Democratic primary in Virginia. Now let's talk.
Donald Trump should not be leading the Republican Party. I mean, I can't say it enough. I think that he's a babe. His morals are completely misplaced, and someone who is paying off porn stars while his wife is at home pregnant, someone who has been found guilty of sexual assault should not be leading our country.
Both North Carolina and Virginia. In Virginia, do you think Biden legitimately won the 2020 election? Now, here we see more of an even split of those participating in the Republican primary. 45% say yes, Biden legitimately won. 46% incorrectly say no, Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. That's similar to what we saw in New Hampshire, a sort of even split. If you look, though, in North Carolina, it's a different story. Far more election deniers in the North Carolina Republican primary electorate. 60% incorrectly say that Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. Only a third, 34%, say correctly that Joe Biden did win. We also asked that follow-up question that John Berman asked that voter in Colorado. If convicted of a crime, is Donald Trump still fit for the presidency? A majority in Virginia voting in the Republican primary today, 53%, say yes. Even as a convicted criminal, Donald Trump is fit for the presidency. 40% say no. In North Carolina, it is even more so. 64%, nearly 2/3 of voters participating in the